Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Sella, in studio with co-host Jay Dash. We're going to talk some Steeler football for you today. Got a little bit of draft for you. I mean, the Combine hasn't even happened. It's not February 22nd yet, so a lot of this is going to change. You see a million mock drafts out. I'm not here to give you a mock draft. I'm just here to try to give you some guys the Steelers could target in the first round, depending on who falls to them at number 25. Because I think we both agree that they're not going to reach for something, and they're probably not going to trade up because they don't really have the firepower to be able to do it.
Yeah, well, you never know about trades, what's going to happen, but I doubt they trade up.
Well, with no 5th or 6th round pick, it makes it tough.
Right.
And they could end up with 3 7th round picks, though. They have 2, one for the punter they traded to the Giants, and then they might get a compensatory 7th round pick for Bryce McCain or whatever that dude's name was that rolled out before the 2015 season.
Yeah, McCain. I like that guy, actually.
He actually played pretty good this year, too. He would have been better than Blake. I think we both can agree that, and most Steeler fans, the team was pretty bad against the pass last year. They got a lot of turnovers, but they gave up a lot of yards. People were screaming for a complete overhaul of the defensive backfield. We both know that's not going to happen.
Well, it's almost impossible. What are you going to do? Just let's say you just get rid of everyone. Then what do you do?
Exactly. How are you going to fill those slots? The Steelers don't sign 4 free agents in 1 year, let alone in one position.
And, you know? I get it. What, they already signed
Cockrell,
okay? Yeah. And then you're hoping they're going to bring back Gay.
Right.
And
then you have Golson.
And then there's possibly Boykin you could bring back as well. But I get it, because no matter what, it's not going to go from terrible to beast in one season. It's just not going to happen.
Right. You have to put the right pieces together and then try to hope that it gets better a little bit this year and then even better again the next year. Because you can't, they just don't have the cap room to do something crazy.
Yeah. But, I mean, it can get better. It definitely can get better, especially if Golson can come back and contribute this season.
Yeah, cornerback's the biggest topic on social media. Everybody thinks the Steelers are going to use their first-round pick on one and spend big free agent money on one. I don't think either one of those things are going to happen. I think, like you said, they're probably going to bring Gay back. You know, you're going to draft a few guys. I expect safety to be the position in the defensive backfield that they address, if they actually do address it in the draft, because 4 teams list cornerback as their top need going into the draft, and that's right now, according to NFL.com. A lot of that will change if they sign their own free agents or if they sign outside free agents before the draft. But 0 teams list safety as their top positional need heading into the draft. So that fares well for the Steelers to be able to go out and snatch the best or maybe second best, because, you know, it doesn't always work out exactly like these mocks and everything say. But for a couple of the needs the Steelers have, defensive back, corner, safety, guard, tight end, outside linebacker, safety would definitely be the easiest position. 3 teams list outside linebacker as their top need. 1 team lists guard, and like 5 teams list offensive tackle. So the chances of getting one of the top offensive linemen at the 25th pick, not looking too good. But it does look like this year we could get an impact safety.
No, you never know this early, really.
Right.
Things can definitely change.
A lot of things will change.
You just got to take what falls to you. Look what the New England Patriots did last year. The Patriots sat around, waited. Malcolm Brown fell to him. He was supposed to go as high as 15 or something like that, I remember. He falls. They grab him, and he turns out to be a good player for him. That's what the Steelers need to do. If it's a D tackle that falls, if it's a safety, if it's a corner, whatever it is, just let it come to you. And, I mean, I feel like they did that last season, too. I mean, Bud Dupree was definitely a guy that fell to them, and they went up and snagged them, and it looked like a good draft pick right there. So I think they need to do the same thing this season.
Yeah, I like Dupree instead of taking that Byron Jones. I'm not saying Jones is going to be a bad player, but he was the 4th-rated corner.
Right.
Dupree is probably 2nd-rated linebacker out of that rookie
I would have
class.
liked to see Marcus Peters come in, but he was drafted a little bit too early.
Well, the first guy we're going to talk about is a cornerback, Jalen Ramsey out of Florida State. He's ranked 7th overall by DraftTech.com. He was the first freshman to start the opener at corner for the Seminoles since Deion Sanders. He's actually being compared a little bit to Deion, not as much as an athlete, but I don't know too many people that actually are. He has the prototype frame for a big press cover corner. He uses his size to redirect receivers, and he can completely blow up a route sometimes. And he only allowed a completion rate of 38.5% while in college.
That really doesn't sound like Deion to me, though. I mean,
well,
forcing receivers off the route, that's the last thing he was doing. You know what I mean?
He won an ACC indoor and outdoor long jump title in 2015. So they're not comparing his playing style, just maybe, I don't know, his speed.
I tell you what, if he tackles like Deion Sanders, this guy is not going to be a Pittsburgh.
Well, yeah. He actually does tackle way better than Deion.
Oh, he has to.
He does need to improve his footwork a little bit. He can get knocked off balance by receivers that can get in and out of their release, like AB, a lot of slot receivers, Julian Edelman, and he needs to attack the run instead of waiting for it to come to him. So that's something the Steelers really value at corner. And this guy is one of the top-rated corners on almost everybody's board, so I don't expect him to fall to Pittsburgh.
Well, not right now anyways. Who knows? He could end up being the 4th, 5th best corner by the time the draft
rolls around. He could have a terrible combine.
Yeah, if he goes into the draft as the top corner, then there's pretty much zero chance Pittsburgh will get him.
Another guy, Vernon Hargreaves out of Florida. He's 5'11", 198, so that's not great size, but it's not bad size either. He was the most valuable player of the Under Armour All-American game. He worked his way onto the field as a true freshman. He ranked among the leaders in the SEC with 14 passes defended, including 3 interceptions. This guy earned first-team All-SEC honors in all 3 of his seasons at Florida. That's pretty good. He's not Tim Tebow, though.
No.
I don't think he's going to wash out of the league after a year.
Who knows?
He's an agile guy. He's somebody who can go up against those slot receivers, the ABs, the Edelmans, Emmanuel Sanders. I know he doesn't play in the slot, but he's a quick guy off the ball. He excels in press coverage, off coverage, or zone coverage, so he really can play in any scheme. He's not somebody that you need to draft to be scheme specific. And he posted 38 passes defended and 10 interceptions over the last 3 seasons.
Well, I still want to bring playmakers in here. You could say, hey, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, they were a lot of playmakers this season, making a lot of turnovers. That doesn't necessarily happen from season to season.
Right.
Next season, it could go where Pittsburgh goes back to how they were a couple years ago when they were forcing no turnovers. And if that happens, you're going to see this defensive backfield get beat a lot more, and it's going to look a lot worse.
Hargreaves is an aggressive player, but sometimes that gets him in a little bit of trouble with double moves. He can get beat over the top, but he does have the recovery speed to catch up. But I'm sure that'll get him a little bit early in his career. We got 2 more cornerbacks for you. The next one, Mackensie Alexander out of Clemson. Clemson had that dream season this year. He's the 14th overall player on Draft Tech and the 3rd best cornerback according to them right now. He was ranked the 4th best prospect in the country by ESPN coming out of high school. In 2014, he was named Freshman All-American and honorable mention All-ACC honors as a full-time starter. And now this is something I read online, but I wanted to ask you about it, so I wrote it down word for word. It says, in fact, his lack of statistical production over the past 2 years, no picks, 11 pass breakups in 2014 and 2015, shows how little opponents challenged him. I agree with that, but that doesn't always mean that too. I couldn't find how many times he was actually targeted. That's what I really wanted to go out and find.
Well, I mean, look, if he's ranked as high as he is, it's definitely that, because if it's not that, the other side of it is he got completely torched because he has no picks and just 11 pass breakups. So you could tell just by how analysts rank him that's the situation here, that he wasn't get thrown to a lot. Now, if you're looking at other guys and see the same type of stats, it may be completely different, like you're saying.
He did only allow 29.6% completion and no touchdowns in 2015.
See,
so
yeah, that shows right there.
Beast. The guy gets caught up in a lot of trash talking, so maybe the Bengals move up and get this guy because we all know how much they love guys like that.
Well, let's not kid ourselves. The Steelers like a little bit of trash talk, too.
Believe it. And during his 2-year stint with Clemson, he did have no picks and just 10 total passes defended. So does he have hands? We don't know. I mean, he could, but the lack of throws at him might actually kind of hurt his draft stock a little bit because people value those stupid stats. But as long as he has a good combine, it's not like it's going to hurt him. The last guy, Eli Apple, this is the one I see most Steeler fans on social media screaming for. I mean, every day on Facebook, you see at least 4 or 5 people post in the Steeler group something about this guy. He's all over Twitter. He's on ESPN. They're predicting him. NFL.com, 2 of their 4 mocks they have up right now, they have this guy coming to Pittsburgh. He's a big-time corner out of Ohio State. Ohio State's played a lot of big-time games recently, so he's used to being on that level. He's 6'1", 198 pounds. He's ranked 33rd overall by Draft Tech, and he's the 4th best corner. He started 14 of 15 games as a redshirt freshman during Ohio State's run to a national title that year. He was actually the guy who sealed the Buckeyes' win over Oregon in that championship game. He intercepted Marcus Mariota's final college pass. So Mariota throws 4 touchdowns in his first NFL game, but this dude sealed up his college game.
Nice.
In 4 seasons, he had 53 tackles, 5.5 for a loss, 3 picks, 10 pass breakups. Not bad. Good footwork. He moves with receivers. He can play inside or outside. He prefers to play outside. He likes boundary corner. He doesn't read a quarterback's eyes real well, and he has a little bit of hard time tracking the ball in the air. Those are things that you work on with coaching. You know, all the athletic tools are there, and I don't want to call him a raw product because he has played in a lot of these big games and played against some big-time receivers. But, you know...
That tells me he's better at man, too. I mean, if you got to read the quarterback's eyes, you're mostly in zone coverage in those situations as well.
Right, and he does get a little grabby if he thinks he's going to get beat. He almost panics, but, again, that's something you can learn. Put boxing gloves on him in practice and watch him try to grab people and completely whiff, and then he gets burned, so he figures it out. But I think he's the most likely corner if one falls to Pittsburgh, or if they decide to take one, they could go with him. He would fit here.
Still, I'd say unlikely. Corner's not a position they like to take in the first round.
Agreed. Well, let's move on to safety. The first guy, none of these guys are in any particular order, by the way. I'm not saying that the first guy I talk about is the top guy or whatever. I just kind of how I wrote them down. Deion Thompson, he's a safety out of Boise State. He's 6'2", 210 pounds, the 42nd player overall on Draft Tech. He's the top free safety, but the second safety on Draft Tech. There is one strong safety ranked ahead of him. Thompson received All-American recognition in the past 2 years. He picked off 7 passes in 2014, added 5 more in just 11 games this year. He tied for the most picks of any player in the country. At 6'2", 205 pounds, he is kind of a ball hawk, but his physical presence in the secondary, he's a solid tackler. He's not just somebody who's going to go after the ball and then whiff on tackles like Deion. This guy had 242 career tackles. He had 8.5 for a loss alone in 2015. He's that big, strong, Cam Chancellor type safety that you see out in Seattle that I'm not saying he'd be bad or whatever. I just don't know if he's exactly what the Steelers need. At safety, anyway. They need a guy who can make plays on the ball. They already have Mike Mitchell, who's standing out there in la-la land trying to take people's heads off.
We're not saying we don't like Will Allen here, but he's about at the end of his career, so they're going to have to bring in someone to replace him, and we know that Shamarko Thomas just isn't that guy that's going to fill that spot.
Another guy from Clemson, Jayron Kearse. I think it's Jayron. That's how it's spelled anyway. Maybe Jayron.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? He's 6'4", 205 pounds. He's a guy that plays with good instincts. He is actually Jayron Kearse, the big freak D lineman. It's his cousin or his brother or something. I can't remember.
Relative.
He's related to him. That's all I know. But this guy's freakishly tall and freakishly long. He has the size and range to become a beast tackler if he works hard in the NFL. And he's able to contribute immediately on special teams and finished 2015 with 7 special teams tackles. That's big for Pittsburgh because we may have to let Ross Ventrone go if we can't afford it. We may have to let Darius Hayward-Bay go if we can't afford it. Will Allen played some special teams every once in a while if we really needed to make a stop. So we're going to need guys to fill those positions, and these draft picks are pretty cheap. The only problem with this guy, maybe not the only one, he needs to be a little better pre-snap, needs to be a little better on misdirections and counters. He gets beat by that a lot. He's not going to match up against the shifty slot receivers. He's another guy who's like a Cam Chancellor. He's real big, tall, and strong, but he's not quite as big as Thompson or as physical.
Well, what this tells me is for the first season, you would expect him to contribute more on special teams than anything else, really, because like you said, he's not as good pre-snap. And if you're not as good pre-snap in college, it only gets harder when you come to the NFL, and that's something that's going to take a little bit of time to learn. So you may not see him much in his first season on the defensive side.
Kind of like Polamalu in his first year. He struggled to read what was going on. Another safety we got, Deion Bush out of Miami, 6 foot, 202. A lot of big safeties in this draft, especially at the top end of it. This guy's a good physical player. He's not afraid to get dirty. He's a good wrap-up tackler, another determined special teams player. He doesn't change direction real well. Another guy who shows pre-snap confusion at times, and he's late to respond to throws in his area in zone coverage. But it's hard in the NFL sometimes. The way the spread offense is run, defenses have to be totally different than what they are in the NFL. So some of these pre-snap things, yes, they're going to hurt him in his first year. They can be overcome. But the Steelers are looking to draft somebody, if they do draft a safety, that can play day one. So I'm not sure if this guy's exactly the right fit either. We need a playmaker to at least be able to contribute. Maybe they don't have to start, but they have to be able to contribute. Our first-round pick has to play more this year. I liked how much Bud Dupree played this year and Shazier the year past. But before that, we were always hesitant to get our first-round picks out on the field real early. A couple guards here. I got 3 guards. We won't go as in-depth. They're not as fun. Cody Whitehair out of Kansas State. He's 6'4", 309 pounds. He was a 4-year starter and voted team captain in 2015. He's played both guard and tackle spots and has roster value at all 5 positions, actually. He's a guy with exceptional body control and core strength that allows him to help stop defenders when they're trying to get to the edge. His arm length is a little below average for an interior lineman, and he needs to improve his handwork, especially with the short arms. You got to be quick with those hands, and you got to actually learn how to hold without letting the ref see you. And sometimes this guy gets caught lunging. Again, that has something to do with his short arms. So if he gets off the ball, the other guy gets off the ball a little quicker. If they punch you and you get stuck backwards a little bit, you're falling forward almost to try to get back into the block, whereas the guy with the longer arms can engage you real quick. So he might struggle with that. He might actually be a better tackle than guard.
Well, I think whatever his weaknesses are, he'll have time to improve on them if he gets drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously, because I think they not necessarily are happy with their offensive line, but I'm sure they have what they need there, and they can let a guy sit for a little while and learn before he comes in and takes over as a starter.
You think they'll bring Ramon Foster back?
Why wouldn't they, man? I'd bring this entire offensive. Now, I know Beacham's one question on the offensive line, but outside of that, man, I'd try to keep it everything as close to the same as possible, because what we've seen really the past 2 seasons, we were talking up that offensive line, not all season 2 years ago, but a lot of that season and definitely the second half of this past season, and really pretty much all season long, that offensive line has been nothing but great. And a lot of that without Pouncey as well. So I just want to keep this offensive line the same. I mean, I said it coming in the last season too. I want to keep it the same because we've seen Big Ben get demolished many a times.
Oh, too many times.
So when it works, just stick with it.
Another guard, Johnny Manziel's boy, Jermaine Effetti out of Texas A&M. He's 6'6", 335. He started the past 3 seasons for the Aggies. He started out as a freshman All-American right guard, blocking for Manziel the year after he won the Heisman Trophy. The following year, he moved to right tackle, started 11 games, missed 2 due to an MCL sprain. They hoped that Effetti could take over the left tackle spot after Cedric Ogbuie. I swear they have the hardest freaking names of anybody to say, Texas A&M. He went to the Bengals last year, I believe, in the draft in the first round, but he didn't fit well at left, so he kind of moved back over and stayed on the right side. He played guard and tackle. He can play either as a pro. He has athleticism to stop the fast edge rushers. He's got good, strong legs, but he doesn't always get set deep enough in his pass protection. So although he's quick enough to stop those edge rushers, he doesn't always have the right technique to stop them. He keeps his pads too high, so he can easily be dominated, pushed around. Work on those couple things. The guy could be a good player, but he's another one of those tweener, tackle guard who knows where they could be. But that might actually work for the Steelers in the short term, because if we don't sign Beacham, it'd be nice to have somebody who could slot in at guard if Villanueva or Gilbert went down, because I don't trust Mike Adams.
Or don't work out. Yeah, whatever happens there. But this guy, you say he keeps his pads too high. At least he's not like Johnny Manziel and is just too high.
Hey, see? One up on Manziel. I don't think this dude broke his girlfriend's eardrum either or threatened to kill her.
Well, we'll see if any of that's true. You got to at least let it work out.
Well, she found, the whole abuse thing is in the report that she wrote. I mean, she could have lied.
Yeah, exactly.
Wrong,
so you got to let it play out and see if this is just a girlfriend that's a little pissed off.
Apparently she was banging on her neighbor's door screaming for her life from what I read.
So let it play out and see what happens first. But yeah, I agree.
Last guard, Joshua Garnett out of Stanford, 6'4", 317. Stanford has produced some good offensive linemen.
Yeah.
David DeCastro. Garnett won numerous All-American honors and the Outland trophies, the nation's top interior lineman. His combination of size and speed it really surprised a lot of people. Somebody this big, you don't expect him to be able to move around as well. He's got a real strong lower body. He takes good angles to second level blocks to make up for the little bit of lack of speed that he has from being such a big guy. And he's very well schooled with his handwork. He's somebody that's going to win in close quarters, so you're not going to be able to get him caught up and beat him that way. He does get a little lazy towards the end of the game when he gets tired. He's a big guy, so he needs to work on his conditioning. And sometimes he takes more of a hug and contain approach against rushers rather than getting that quick inside punch. But again, that's usually at the end of the game when he starts to get a little winded. And once you get into the NFL, if you can't pass those conditioning tests at the beginning of the season, you don't even get to play.
Yeah, I tell you what, I think I'd be a little bit upset if they drafted a lineman in the first round. You can always use linemen, don't get me wrong. You can't go wrong if you draft the right lineman. But they need help on the defensive side. I talk up the defense, I talk down the offense, but in the end, the offensive parts are there. So I really want to see them go defense.
Well, what about tight end? That's the one position on offense that you could see them using a first-round pick on. Now, the first guy I got here is Hunter Henry out of Arkansas. He's 6'5", 253. He had no drops this year in a 51-catch season. He is a very talented guy, so a lot of linebackers have trouble covering him. He's quick for his size. He's able to run a variety of routes. You don't really have to take him off the field. He's not somebody like Kobe Fleener and what's his name out in Indy where they're always trying to share.
Dwayne Allen?
Yeah, one's good at one thing, one's good. This guy can do everything. He does grab a little bit too much when he's blocking. He had 3 holding calls in 2015, and he's a little upright in his breaks. He rounds off his routes, so he's got to get a little smoother in that area. But when you're as athletic as him in college, you just dominate by that. So those things can be polished up in the NFL. But you don't like tight end. Not first round pick.
Not in the first round. Last season they were thinking about drafting Max Williams in the second round. Baltimore took him ahead of them, and they decided, you know what, they were going to go with Jesse James later. What, 4th round, something like that? Fifth round?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, so really, I think Jesse James performed pretty well. In fact, he pretty much as good as Max Williams, if not better, I would say. Max Williams might have had a little bit better stats, but Jesse James looks good to me, and I think that draft pick, they felt like they drafted him to be their future tight end still.
Yeah, they got great value in that round, or 6th round, I think it was, with Antonio Brown. So they know what they're doing in pass catchers in those late rounds. And Williams had way more opportunities to put up the stats, so that's why he had bigger stats.
Yeah, obviously Heath Miller's in front of Jesse James. Ahead of Max Williams, there really wasn't that much.
Another Ohio State guy we got here, Nick Vannett. He's 6'5", 256. He has the NFL size and hands. He was an honorable mention All Big Ten selection with 19 catches for 162 yards in 2015. He had similar production, 19 catches, 220 yards, but more red zone targets as a junior. He scored 5 times. He's comfortable in traffic. He can make the heavily contested catches. He's not afraid to take a hit over the middle, and his size helps him in his blocking assignments. But he's not the best route runner. He lets the defender crowd him. He doesn't use his big size to be open. He can make the tough catches, but it seems like he's making those because he's not doing the right things to make them easy catches. So it almost seems like he's forcing himself into these tough catches. But the fact that he can still get them, if you can shore up his techniques in the other ways, maybe get him to use his body better and shield the defender, he's a guy you can look for. And again, this is not somebody I actually think that they're going to draft. It's just one of the top tight ends at a positional need for the Steelers.
Yeah, again, if you're going to go tight end, if you really are going to go tight end in the first round, it has to be a guy that can both block and produce in the passing game. There's no reason to draft a guy that can produce in the passing game but can't block for you. Jesse James, I think, can produce in the passing game. So if anything, you want to draft a guy that can block very well if you're going to take one or the other. And you're definitely not going to take a guy in the first round just because he blocks well. So it has to be a guy that can do both if you're going in the first round here.
Well, Austin Hooper out of Stanford, a guy, he's 6'4", 248. He kind of fits that mold a little bit better. Stanford's produced some good tight ends along with guards. They have Zach Ertz, Kobe Fleener, Jim Dre, all enjoying, okay NFL careers. Not like they're all stars, but to come out of there and actually play for
You got to remember, man, there's only one or two tight end stars over a course of 10 seasons. You know what I mean?
Believe it.
There's hardly any big-time tight ends.
As a redshirt freshman in 2014, Hooper earned freshman All-American and second-team All-Pac-12 honors. It's hard to say these honors in college. They're just so long. There's too many of them. He builds up speed. It allows him to threaten the seam off the line of scrimmage. He shows enough burst to create separation from the linebackers and safeties when he's kind of hovering around the middle or running crossing routes or side routes. He's a willing blocker. He comes from a family of football players. I believe his dad played college football. I don't think anybody else played pro, but there were a lot of offensive linemen. This is the first one that was like an actual skill position. So he has that kind
They're
of
working their way out from the middle.
ingrained into him, that hardworking demeanor. He did have 9 drops over the 2 seasons and a drop rate of almost 11%, and his catch radius is a little average for his size. But it's just somebody, again, tight ends are very raw. Very rarely do you see, a beast tight end. It's always a surprising guy, like Jimmy Graham or Antonio Gates. Like, nobody really expected those guys to come out and dominate the way
Shannon
they did
Sharp
so early.
Drafted after Eric Green.
Yeah, and Eric Green wasn't too shabby
Way after.
himself.
Eric Green, I kind of like the guy. They never really won with him or anything.
Right.
But I think he was, first round? Was he a first-round pick?
Maybe.
And Shannon Sharp was 7th round.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
But that's all I got for you. That's all the draft guys. I'm going to put another segment together for next week of some free agents that they may be able to plug in.
Well, from what you were talking about here, I would say go with one of the safeties
That's
if
what
you're
I'm
going to go with
thinking.
one of these guys.
Especially with no
I'll tell
other
you what,
teams
though,
having safety at their number one need as of this moment.
Some of those linemen sounded pretty good as well, but I would still go defensively. And none of those corners excited me too much. Yeah, you compare one to Deion Sanders, but I highly doubt that. So I'm going to say some of these safeties.
If you can get the top safety or even the second best safety in the draft, now depending on how good they are at that pick, then you go for it. Now, last year they had the similar situation with Landon Collins. Everybody said that he was going to be so good, and the Steelers passed on him, took Bud Dupree. The Giants took Collins. Collins had a good rookie year, just like Dupree. Collins struggled a little bit to stay on the field with some injury issues. But I hope the Steelers don't do linebacker in the first round this year.
Yeah, it's no fun after a while. You know?
I know that you hope they don't do O-line, so let's get a skilled player.
I think I'd rather go O-line over tight end. I think tight end's the last one I'd go.
Yeah, I don't think I would do a tight end either. I don't know why people list tight end as such a high need for the Steelers. I think Heath is going to restructure enough to give us room and then still give us one more good year. His numbers were good when Ben was in there.
If I was him, I would not restructure. Screw that, man. If it's your last season, I'm taking all that money.
We'll see. See what Earl wants to do. Earl Miller. But that's all we got, fans. Hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Hit me up on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com. Keep coming back to YouTube and click and subscribe. Everybody loves them, some Pittsburgh Steelers.